We now return to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles 2. Resolve. The second half of the Chronicles, and technically its own game, but whatever. Let's begin.
Standing here in the bright sunshine, looking out over the vast ocean. Those days in London seem like a dream. But I do miss my time in England's vast capital. You know, he's flourished into a truly wonderful lawyer. I've no doubt that at this very moment, he's fighting some noble cause in court. Forgive me for taking so long to come to visit you. My life has been such a whirlwind since I returned. And no one could have predicted what has happened. Just 2 months after arriving home. So I came here today to ask something of you. Tomorrow, I shall be standing in court. For the only time in my life. As a lawyer. So please, I ask for your guidance. Kazuma-sama.
Episode 1, The Adventure of the Blossoming Attorney. The 13th of August, 8:26 a.m. The Supreme Court of Judicature, the Defendant's Chamber, Antechamber, Christ, I can't read right now, number 3. Here I am again after 9 months, the Supreme Court of Judicature of Japan. I feel so nervous, but I must steel my nerves and find a way to compose myself. Ah, good, you're here. It doesn't do for a lawyer to be late. I'm really hoping that I can remember the voices, because these characters came from the very beginning of the series, and that was a few months ago now. Oh, yes, good morning, sir. I hardly recognize you. You cut a fine figure, counsel. But you look as white as a sheet, and those wide eyes aren't doing you any favors either. Oh dear. The truth is, I'm so incredibly nervous, I feel utterly nauseated. I almost wish that I'd never been born. Goodness, now that's not the sort of thing a father hopes to hear from his daughter, I must say. Eugene Mikotoba, professor of medicine at the Imperial Yume University. A man who, earlier in his life, traveled to Great Britain to study the latest advances in forensic medical science. And of course, my brilliant father. Excuse me. Would I be correct in thinking that you are to be my lawyer in court today? Yes, that's right, miss. Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to represent me. I swear on my life. It's a complete fabrication, the whole thing. Ray Membami, born the same year as I and my greatest friend. How did we not recognize each other? If she's... Though unusual for a woman in our time, she works at the university research laboratory helping my father. And sadly, she's the defendant in today's trial, accused of committing a truly awful Murder. Are you feeling all right? Since we started talking, you seem, well, to have become a little flushed. Oh, my, well, it's just that you look so gallant and dashing. Sorry? And when I fall under your intense gaze, it makes me feel rather bashful. Goodness, I don't think she knows. She hasn't realized who I am.
It would seem our little plan for this trial is going to work.
Oh, what do you mean, Professor Mikoto?
If even your best friend can't see through the disguise, I think we can relax.
Disguise? Yes, I've never tried dressing this way before, of course, so I wasn't sure how convincing it would be. But this does make me feel a little relieved, as you say, Father. Father? What? Is that you, Susato? I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner, Ray. It's just that... No! What are you doing? What's going on? What? That varsity uniform, that varsity cap, that varsity cape, that varsity badge. Look at you. You look for all the world just like a student of the Imperial Yume University. A male student. I'm so glad you think so. It means all my preparations have been worthwhile. I woke at 4 this morning to make a start. But I don't understand. Why are you dressed like that? Well, you see...
It was the only way. The only way she would be permitted into the Supreme Court to take on your defense in this trial.
My defense? Never before in my life have I felt so frustrated at being born into this body. Courts in Japan are barred to women. We're not even allowed to set foot inside the courtroom, despite the fact that the laws of the land apply to all people, male and female alike. But women are forbidden. Just for today, I'll be leaving my true self at the courtroom door, as we say this in front of the bailiffs, so that I can act as your lawyer. Oh, Susato, you'd go to such lengths for me? Of course, you're my greatest friend. I just worry that I shan't be the lawyer you deserve. No, I have complete faith in you. Ray. It's so strange, though. I mean, you're such an accomplished judicial assistant already, and yet just because you're a woman... What a wretched reason. I mean, why shouldn't you be allowed in court? You're so gallant and dashing. Ray, please don't look at me like that, with those flushed cheeks and doting eyes. Oh, I'm sorry, it's just... You really do look so dashing. Yes, you mentioned that once or twice.
You should be pleased. It means you look convincing as a man.
I'm not sure most girls enjoy the fact that they could convincingly look like a man. I am pleased, I think. It certainly helped to bolster my confidence today. Hey, you're managing to put on a brave face in all this, but I can see through it. I've noticed how your shoulders are slumped and how you're trembling ever so slightly. Susato, you do believe me, don't you? I didn't do it. I couldn't have. I mean, murder. Of course. You have nothing to worry about. Your conscience is perfectly clean. Isn't that right? Yes, it is. Perfectly clean. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind about your innocence, which is why I'll stand by you until the bitter end in this trial. Whatever happens, I'll always be on your side, because that's what it means to be a defense lawyer. That means so much to me, Susato. Defendant counsel. Court is about to begin. Proceed to the courtroom at once.
You should go in at once, Ray. If you're late, the judge won't hesitate to pronounce you guilty.
No. Stand aside. I don't think I've ever seen her run so fast.
Well, Susato, you've certainly surprised your father. Going to such lengths to be admitted into the courtroom and with no prior experience of being a lawyer.
There was simply no other way. That's all there is to it. But Father, you haven't told her, have you? I mean, I'm right in assuming that Ray doesn't know how it came to this.
Yes, quite right. I've kept that information from her. It would only worry her if she found out that no other lawyer would agree to take her case. I didn't want to burden her with that.
And is it true, the reason why every other lawyer is refusing to take the case? Is it really because of who the victim was?
We should be making a move now, too. As you know, law isn't my field, but I'll do what I can to support my student.
Thank you, Father. I'm Susato Mikotoba, a judicial assistant. 8 months ago, I accompanied a student of law on a study trip to Great Britain. But 2 months ago, due to unforeseen circumstances, I found myself back in Japan. How many times have I wished that he were here, I wonder. Still, I have no choice now but to steel myself for the trial ahead. Wish me luck, Naruhodo-san.
This court is now in session to hear the trial of Ray Membami.
The prosecution is fully ready to proceed, Your Excellency.
Defense counsel, are you ready? Yes, Your Excellency, we are ready. Great. Two voices very similar to each other. Ready. Yes, counsel. According to your registration details, your name is, Ryutaro Naruhodo, is that correct? Sorry? Oh yes, I had to come up with a suitable male name for you for this little venture, so I'm afraid to say I simply put down the first name that sprung to mind. Well, counsel?
Yes, that's right. It's me.
Yes, I am Ryutaro, he who has vowed to uphold the pride of the great Naruhodo clan. Ah. It seems Ryutaro may need to consider how better to uphold his manly act first and not overdo it. And those wild, wide eyes aren't doing you any favors either. Just relax and listen.
Naruhodo? A fresh face in this courtroom, if I'm not mistaken. But the name Naruhodo, would that perchance be...
You may be thinking of Ryunosuke Naruhodo, currently in Great Britain as part of a study program. This is, his cousin. That's right. Ryutaro here has been studying in the provinces, but was called to the capital for this trial. I assure you, in matters of law, his knowledge rivals that of any of Tokyo's preeminent lawyers. Any of them.
Tut. What a pitiful situation. Having been rejected by every lawyer in the capital, the accused has had to call in a country boy. How dare you? Susato is every bit as gallant and dashing as any of your Tokyo attorneys. I won't have you making fun of her. Her? Please be careful, Ray. What an unrefined tomboy we have here. But I wonder, is your gallant and dashing lawyer up to the challenge of defending you? His wide, skittish eyes very much suggest that he is not. I'm so nervous. Now that I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand what Naruhodo-san goes through. Like it or not, eyes are wont to flit.
The case to be heard on this day is a matter of great significance to our national interests. In fact, it would be reasonable to assume that the outcome of this trial may well affect the very future of our empire.
Just like the trial 9 months ago. And yet, for proceedings of such importance, we have this unknown yokel by the dock? Dear me.
Perhaps it would be an appropriate moment for me to assess the defense, to determine whether you are sufficiently competent to practice in this courtroom. 9 months ago, when a certain other Naruhodo stood where you're standing now, this same judge tested him as well. Even though he was just a student at the time, not even of law, he passed the test with flying colors. For a trained and experienced judicial assistant like you, this will be easy. So, counsel, do you consent to answering some simple questions?
All right, it's time to prove myself.
Yes, Your Excellency.
Please do make them simple.
Very well. To start with, you will state the name of the victim.
Oh, that's a simple one. I couldn't forget that if I tried.
What's the matter?
Now that I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand something else Naruhodo-san goes through. Like it or not, minds are wont to blank.
It's not surprising, really. It's your first time in this position, and in that guise. Even a bright spark like you is bound to flicker and falter a little under the circumstances.
Oh dear, this is a dismal failure.
Don't fret. You need only use the knowledge you've gained as a judicial assistant to overcome the problem.
Of course, the court record. Yes, the answer will be amongst all the key information about the case in the court record.
That's right. Just use E.
The hell's E? Where is the E?
To open the court record. Then you need to flip to the People section with E. And don't take too long over it. His Excellency is watching you closely.
Alright, check the court record with E. That's where the information I need will be.
If you say so. Examine.
Giselle Brett. I don't remember her voice either. Ray Membami, my best friend who works as an assistant to my father in his laboratory at the Imperial Yume University. She's the defendant in this case.
I'm waiting, counsel. What is the name of the victim in this case?
Oh, the victim. I was looking at the defendant. The name of the victim who lost her life in this case is Miss Giselle Brett. Giselle Brett.
A name that will never be forgotten in the courtrooms of our country, I'm sure. Correct. And being a member of our empire's judiciary, you will be well aware of the significance of that name. So, let me pose another simple question. As you know, Miss Brett was a visiting student from the Empire of Great Britain. Why, then, is her name indelibly associated with our own empire's judicial history? Obviously, you won't have forgotten that case from 9 months ago. But if it's proving hard to recall the finer points, everything you need is included in the court record.
Obviously, I still remember. That was the start of everything. Giselle Brett, behind the woman's student persona, was the face of
a killer.
Right? We better check. The victim of the case, who was a former British exchange student 9 months ago, she was found guilty of the murder of visiting Professor Dr. John Wilson.
Yeah, okay.
Yes!
9 months ago, it's very difficult for me to pretend to do the voice of a girl, pretending to do the voice of a man that is not my own voice. 9 months ago, a visiting professor of medicine at the Imperial Yume University was killed, and the culprit was Giselle Brett.
Yes, she was a killer. At the time, our country had just signed a new treaty with the Empire of Great Britain, and it was in the midst of this delicate diplomatic situation that the incident occurred. An Englishman, Dr. John H. Wilson, was shot dead. I believe he was an associate of yours, Professor Mikotoba. Oh, the wrong person. Who are we talking about? Was she talking to him? Who was that voice? Yes, I was indebted to the man. He's been my mentor when I went to London to study forensic medicine. Indeed, it was I who invited him here to Japan as a visiting professor at the university. Naturally, the murder of an Englishman on our soil was a matter the government wished to resolve rapidly. Indeed it was, which is why a secret trial was conducted here at the Supreme Court. A student of the Imperial Yume University was arrested on suspicion of murder. A second-year English language student by the name of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. With the help of his best friend, a student lawyer, the accused conducted his own defense and exposed the despicable crime committed by Miss Giselle Brett. Miss Brett eventually admitted to her crime. However, when questioned about the motive that drove her to take Dr. Wilson's life, she gave no satisfactory answer before the trial reached its conclusion.
Immediately after the trial, the British government brought its consular jurisdiction into play. We were unable to sentence Miss Brett according to our empire's laws. It was decided that she would be removed to Shanghai, China instead. Why Shanghai?
There's a British consular court there. Correct. I oversaw the negotiations personally. The date of her transfer to Shanghai was finally settled upon only last week. All that remained of our empire's obligations was to see the woman safely on board a steamship.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of when the Sino-Japanese War would have lined up with this, because, I mean, we're talking early 1900s. So this is before the invasion, or... Like, why would we be expediting someone to, China when they're in the midst of an invasion of China? Obviously, that's not... And there were two wars too, so like, when does this game take place? And yet the very day before her departure, the Englishwoman was killed. Only the day before?
That will do. I'm satisfied that the counsel for the defense is sufficiently capable of representing the defendant.
Oh.
Thank you, Your Excellency,
over the first hurdle.
Now a summary of the incident, if you please. Prosecutor Aochi.
As is your wish, Your Excellency. The repugnant crime took place on the 11th of August in broad daylight. On the outskirts of the imperial capital, under a bright blue sky at a secluded bathing spot by the sea. The incident occurred inside a small beach hut erected for bathers to rest or change their clothes. The cause of death was a single stab wound to the posterior abdomen that pierced the victim's lung, an injury which proved fatal. There were two persons alone together in the beach hut at the time of the victim's death. Miss Brett in her bathing attire, and hat apparently, and the accused, Ray Menbami. Accordingly, there can be no doubt of the accused's guilt, especially when we consider she had a powerful motive. The police arrived rapidly at the scene and promptly arrested the young lady. What is the motive?
Well, That extraordinary description of events leaves me somewhat lost for words, I must say.
Certainly true. The prosecution's summary was full of words that raise an awful lot of questions. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about everything, but mostly probably the powerful motive. You are clearly exaggerating. The powerful motive is a blatant overstatement. I mean, is it? Maybe we should have started from the top. Tut, is the yokel boy using long words he doesn't fully understand? I beg your pardon? No matter. Let us put this to the accused, shall we? Membami-san, you are a research assistant at the Imperial Yume University, I believe. Yes, I am. I'm working with Professor Mikotoba in his laboratory at the moment.
I can confirm that. The defendant is an excellent assistant with a strong sense of responsibility.
Fascinating to hear. Now, another question. Prior to your work with Professor Mikotoba, whose research were you assisting then? Oh, I was studying under Dr. John H. Wilson.
Dr. Wilson? The visiting English professor who was murdered by Miss Brett 9 months ago?
The accused had a deep-seated respect for her former mentor, Dr. Wilson. Is that not true? Yes, Dr. Wilson was a wonderful man. Interesting. Then tell the court what deep-seated feelings you had towards the Englishwoman who killed him. Well, obviously I was filled with hatred for what she'd done, a powerful hatred. Oh no, Ray, be careful what you're saying. Ah. The motive was revenge, plain and simple, Your Excellency.
Well, it was clearly a trap all along.
How wicked of him to use Ray's undying respect for her former mentor against her like that. I must find out more details and something we can use to bolster our defense. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution's counsel on what he said about the bathing spot. If I may, Prosecutor Aochi. What do you want, you fresh-faced young yokel student? I wonder, could you explain, please? You mentioned a bathing spot. My apologies. Clearly my modernity has confused the poor country bumpkin's simple mind. Bathing spots are the very latest trend in health practices from the West. We are told that bathing in the water of the ocean is curative, therapeutic, and excellent for the skin's... No, that's not what I meant. I was referring to the fact that Miss Brett had, to all intents and purposes, been found guilty of murder. But why would a known criminal have been relaxing by the sea? For old time's sake, I believe? Sorry? Miss Brett was to depart for Shanghai the following day. Her final wish, as it were, was to enjoy a day at our country's wonderful coast. And the British Embassy put extreme pressure on our government to comply. But on what grounds would we agree to such a request?
Because, as usual, our government is unable to stand up to foreign powers. In matters of diplomacy, it seems we don't even have the courage to decline the whims of a known criminal.
No, don't look at me, Professor. It was the government who granted permission, not I. In any case, it was decided that with a dedicated detective on duty, nothing could go wrong. But in fact, a murder took place. I said don't look at me. It was that young student girl who did it, not I. No one has proved that yet.
I wouldn't provoke the man if you don't need to.
At this stage, I need to gather more information, I think. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up on the being alone together. Minbami-san. Yes, what is it, Naruhodo-san. I'm really starting to wish we'd made my alias Ryutaro Susato. Please tell the court why exactly you were present at the bathing spot with the victim in the first place, and why you were alone with her. Oh, well, no, that's not true. It wasn't like that at all. There were other people present, a detective who was guarding Miss Brett, for starters. I was just asked to accompany Miss Brett as a companion, that's all. But let us be clear. At the moment of her death, you were alone together with the victim in the hut. You and no one else. The truth is, it did not escape my notice that the game did a little autosave right there. The truth is, there is only one reason why this young woman accompanied Miss Brett on her bathing sojourn. It was the accused's last chance to take the victim's life. No. Because, as we know, the following day would see Miss Brett extradited to the British authorities in Shanghai. And the accused would never have an opportunity to dispatch her again. Kindly refrain from conjecture, counsel.
I believe we have a clear picture of the incident now. Despite her guilt being determined 9 months ago, Miss Brett managed to avoid incarceration, instead continuing her research work at the university. Obviously, over that period, she and Ray would have encountered each other on a number of occasions.
Seeing the murderer of the mentor for whom she had such great respect enjoying such undeserved liberty.
Yes, even if it was only temporary until Miss Brett's extradition to Shanghai.
Why do I have such trouble?
You can hardly blame Ray for her feelings of anger and resentment.
Poor Ray. So, Your Excellency, if you'd be so kind as to peruse this exhibit, a photographic print that shows the scene of the crime immediately following the grim incident.
Yes, thank you, Counsel. A tragic image.
As you can clearly see, there is nowhere within the hut that anyone else could have hidden.
The court will accept this photographic print as evidence.
Photograph of the crime scene has been entered into the court record.
As I understand it, then, the victim and the defendant were alone inside the beach hut at the time. This is deeply troubling, I must say. The finger of guilt points firmly at the defendant.
Well, Your Excellency, naturally the prosecution has much more to its case. What? We intend to prove the accused's appalling actions beyond all possible contention. To that end, I can confirm that we have multiple witnesses to the crime and damning evidence. Witnesses? But who? One of whom, I might add, is a highly respected police detective. I assure you, the testimony of these witnesses will leave no room for doubt.
Very well, then, Counsel. Bring forth your witnesses.
I, Takatsuchi Aochi, have been waiting for this moment. Sorry? Oh yes, I hadn't forgotten that trial 9 months ago, here in this very courtroom. And that irreverent little student boy utterly humiliated me. Ryunosuke Naruhodo. This insult to the Aochi family name will never be forgotten. You've become conceited with age, Counsel, but the old will have to stand aside and make way for the new. It's the way of the world. May you never forget that. Strike the head of a samurai whose top knot has been cut, and the bell of cultural enlightenment tolls. Yes, on that fateful day, my former self died. The start of your own mini-Meiji revolution. Are you modernizing as well, Council? Silence! Since I swore revenge back then, there's been a minor miracle atop my head. Observe the Yaochi growth. You see? You see this seed of hope sprouting forth from the barren expanse of my crown? I think that tiny growth is trying to tell me something. I'm afraid I can't really see. Where is the hope exactly? I said silence. Today, I face another yokel student of the Naruhodo clan. Well, I will vanquish you, and my victory will be fertilizer for the seed of hope atop my head. You've been warned. With that, the prosecution calls the witnesses to the stand.
It looks like the stakes are high on both sides in this trial. The prosecution and defense each has much to lose.
Haircut is hardly comparable to Ray's life. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. But not right now. See you next time.